As the sun began to dip below the horizon in the sleepy town of Redwood Hills, 30-year-old Officer Jack Thompson trudged down the winding road, exhausted from his 12-hour shift. His boots echoed against the cracked sidewalk, each step heavier than the last. He had just finished his patrol and was eager to return home to his small house on the outskirts of town, hoping for a quiet evening. The cool, crisp autumn air nipped at his skin, but his thoughts were far from the breeze. He had seen too many sad sights in his line of work, and today had been no different. The familiar quiet of the neighborhood seemed comforting after a long day, but something tugged at his attention. A soft sound interrupted his thoughts. He paused for a moment, listening closely. It was faint but persistent, the sound of small paws padding on the ground, following him. Turning around, Jack spotted a scruffy brown puppy trailing behind him. "Go home, little guy," Jack called, waving his hand dismissively. "You're not supposed to be out here." The puppy, a pitiful sight with a dirty, matted coat and ribs visible through its fur, stopped for a brief moment but then continued to follow Jack. He gave a sigh and continued walking, half-heartedly shaking his head. He couldn't help but notice the puppy's determined gaze, as if it were fixated on him, refusing to leave his side. After a few more blocks, Jack finally stopped and turned around, his patience wearing thin. The puppy froze in its tracks, staring up at him with large, imploring eyes. There was something about those eyes, something Jack couldn't quite put his finger on. "What's your story?" Jack muttered to himself, his voice softening. He couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. The puppy hesitated for a moment, then sat down obediently, its tail wagging slightly. Jack knelt down, trying to inspect the dog more closely. As he moved his fingers to gently lift the dog's scruffy collar, a small crumpled piece of paper fell out from under it. His heart skipped a beat. "What is this?" Jack whispered, carefully unfolding the note in his hands. The handwriting was shaky, almost too delicate, like it was written in a hurry. "Help my sister. We are trapped. No food. No water. To be." Jack's breath caught in his throat. His mind raced. The urgency of the message hit him like a freight train. The puppy, sensing Jack's change in demeanor, stood up and barked once, its tail wagging even more vigorously now. Without a second thought, Jack stood up and started running, his instincts as a police officer kicking in. The puppy bounded alongside him, leading the way with newfound energy as they raced through the empty streets. The faded buildings of the old neighborhood loomed ahead, and Jack's heart pounded in his chest as he realized just how much trouble these children might be in. They arrived at an old apartment complex, its paint peeling and windows patched with cardboard. Jack glanced at the dog, who seemed to know exactly where to go. They entered through the broken security door, its hinges barely holding on. Inside, the hallway was dark and neglected, and the stale air clung to the walls. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered intermittently, casting an eerie glow on the surroundings. The puppy led Jack up the stairs to the second floor, stopping at the door marked 2B. Jack knocked firmly, but the silence from within felt wrong. His gut twisted as he pressed his ear to the door, listening for any movement. "Police," Jack called out, his voice firm. He knocked again, louder this time, but still, no response. The puppy began to whine, pawing anxiously at the door. Jack hesitated for a moment, then made his decision. He kicked the door, and it swung open with a violent crack. Inside, The scene was worse than he imagined. A small girl, no older than 6, sat huddled in the corner, clutching a bundle of blankets. Her face was gaunt, her eyes wide and filled with terror. Her clothes were torn, and her skin pale, as if she had been neglected for far too long. The tiny body in her arms, a baby, lay motionless, but Jack could see the faint rise and fall of its chest, a sign that it was still alive, but barely. The puppy trotted past Jack, running straight to the girl. Its tail wagged furiously as it nuzzled her, jumping up to lick her face. The girl's trembling hands slowly relaxed, and for the first time, a flicker of hope appeared in her eyes. "It's okay, sweetie," Jack said softly, crouching down beside her. "I'm here to help." The girl pulled the baby closer to her chest, her small frame shaking with fear. Jack could see how hard she was trying to be strong. Jack's heart ached as he knelt closer to the little girl, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and hope. The baby in her arms, though alive, appeared pale and dangerously weak. As Jack gently placed a hand on the girl's trembling shoulder, he could feel the weight of the situation settling in. The note had been clear: these children had been left alone for days, without food or water. "Hey, I'm Officer Jack Thompson," he said softly, trying to comfort her. "I'm here to help. You're not alone anymore." The girl didn't respond at first, her gaze never leaving the baby in her arms. Jack could see how fragile the situation was. The baby's breathing was shallow, and Jack's experience told him that it was likely in the early stages of dehydration. He could hear the faint whine of the puppy, now sitting next to the girl, as if it, too, understood how crucial the moment was. Jack pulled out his phone, dialed 911, and spoke with urgency, requesting paramedics. The operator's calm voice on the other end didn't ease the tension building in Jack's chest. Time was running out. He couldn't afford to wait any longer. As the call ended, Jack turned his attention back to the girl. She was staring at him with wide, scared eyes, clutching the baby closer to her chest. Her hands were shaking, and her clothes were torn and filthy. There was no sign of their parents, and Jack's mind was racing with the realization that this wasn't just neglect, it was abandonment. "It's okay," Jack repeated, his voice more soothing now. "They're coming to help. You and your brother are going to be okay." The girl hesitated for a long moment, then whispered, "His name is Noah." Jack's stomach tightened at the sound of the name. He reached out to gently stroke the girl's hair, offering whatever comfort he could. He could tell that she had been forced into the role of protector, at an age when she should have been cared for herself. "What about you, sweetheart?" Jack asked, trying to take the conversation back to a safer place. "What's your name?" The girl looked at him for the first time, her eyes filled with a raw vulnerability. "Lily," she whispered, the name barely audible. Jack gave her a reassuring smile. "Lily, you and Noah are safe now. I'm going to make sure you both get the help you need." As Jack spoke, the puppy, who had been quietly watching them, suddenly stood up and walked over to the door. It barked once, as if it were trying to get Jack's attention. The puppy's tail wagged vigorously as it pawed at the door, its energy suddenly renewed. Jack stood up, feeling an odd sense of urgency that mirrored the dog's behavior. "All right, Lily," Jack said, glancing back at the girl. "I'm going to go find out what's going on outside. Stay here with Noah. I won't be long." The girl nodded, her face a mix of hope and fear. Jack quickly made his way back to the hallway, stepping cautiously over the cracked floor tiles. He could hear the faint sound of sirens growing closer. His heart pounded in his chest, but it wasn't just fear, it was a sense of relief. Help was on the way. Just as the paramedics arrived, Jack could hear the soft padding of the puppy's paws behind him. The dog had followed him out into the hallway, clearly refusing to leave Lily and Noah behind. Jack turned to see the puppy's eyes locked on him, a look of determination in its gaze. Without hesitation, the puppy darted past him and trotted back to the apartment, unwilling to leave the children alone. "Looks like someone knows what they're doing," Jack muttered with a smile, following the dog back to the room. The paramedics were already inside when Jack returned, quickly assessing the situation. They moved with practiced efficiency, hooking up N4 to the baby and checking his vitals. Jack stood back, watching the scene unfold with a sense of awe. He had seen a lot of things in his career, but the bond between this puppy and the children was something truly extraordinary. Lily had let go of the baby just long enough for the paramedics to stabilize him, but she was still close, her hand gently resting on Noah's tiny chest. The puppy had resumed its position by Lily's side, its presence calming her in a way that words never could. As the paramedics worked, Jack walked over to Lily and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did good, Lily," he said softly. "You kept your brother safe. You're so brave." She looked up at him, her eyes wide and trusting. "Is Noah going to be okay?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack nodded. "He's getting the care he needs. You're both going to be okay." But as the paramedics loaded Noah onto a stretcher and prepared to take him to the ambulance, Jack couldn't help but feel the weight of the responsibility that had just been placed on his shoulders. He had promised these kids safety, but the real work was just beginning. The puppy, as if sensing the transition, trotted alongside Jack as he followed the paramedics out of the building. It glanced up at him with those large, loyal eyes, as though it knew exactly what was at stake. As days passed, Jack continued to settle into a routine with Noah and Lily, but the journey to trust and healing was far from over. Noah, once a guarded and withdrawn boy, slowly began to adjust to the newfound stability in his life. Still, deep within him, there were remnants of fear, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. He hadn't known love the way most children did, and every small gesture of care from Jack was met with cautious curiosity, as though he was unsure if it was real or just another fleeting promise. Lily, on the other hand, thrived in this environment. Her nurturing spirit, which had been forced to mature far too early, found solace in the safety Jack provided. She began to smile more, her laughter more frequent as she engaged with Jack, Noah, and Hero. The puppy, who had originally entered their lives in the most unexpected way, had now become a steadfast protector and companion. Hero was no longer just a dog to Noah, he was a bridge to a new life, a constant presence that reminded him he wasn't alone anymore. Hero's role in the family was evolving with every passing day. Jack noticed how Hero would stay close to Noah at all times, even when the boy tried to distance himself. He wasn't a dog who demanded attention, but his quiet, steadfast loyalty spoke volumes. When Noah would retreat to his room after a long day, Hero would follow, curling up at the foot of the bed. It wasn't just for warmth, it was as if the dog instinctively knew that Noah needed him more than ever, and Hero was ready to provide that unconditional support. One evening, after a long day of school and chores, Jack found Noah sitting alone on the front porch, staring into the distance. Hero was beside him, lying calmly with his head resting on his paws. Jack walked over and sat beside Noah, his eyes catching the boy's pensive expression. "You okay?" Jack asked, his voice soft but concerned. Noah looked up at him, his eyes guarded. "I don't know," he said, his voice low. I don't feel like I belong anywhere. I don't want to be a burden." Jack's heart ached for the boy. He placed a hand on Noah's shoulder, offering him the kind of reassurance that only time and love could provide. "You're not a burden, Noah," Jack said firmly. "You're part of this family now. You're not alone anymore, and you never will be." For a long moment, they sat in silence, the night air cool around them. Hero, sensing the heaviness of the moment, nudged Noah's hand gently, reminding him that he was still there. Noah's fingers hesitated for a moment, but then he reached down and began stroking Hero's fur. The dog responded with a soft whine, leaning into Noah's touch as if to say, "I'm here for you." This simple moment marked a turning point. Noah, who had been so unsure of the love Jack and Lily had offered, finally allowed himself to feel it. The bond between them was forming, but it wasn't easy. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. But with every passing day, Jack saw Noah become a little less afraid and a little more confident. It wasn't a fast transformation. It was a gradual process, a quiet healing. One day, Jack received a call from Noah's school. It wasn't the first time the school had contacted him, but this call was different. The teacher mentioned how Noah had been showing signs of improvement. He was interacting with his classmates, asking questions in class, and even smiling occasionally. Jack couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. But as much as Noah was improving in school, there was still a long way to go. The scars of neglect, of being abandoned by those who should have cared for him, ran deep. At night, when the house was quiet and the only sound was Hero's soft breathing, Noah would sometimes have nightmares. He would wake up, trembling and disoriented, unsure of where he was or who he could turn to. It was during these nights that Hero proved his true value, not just as a pet, but as a protector. Whenever Noah's cries pierced the stillness of the night, Hero would be the first to his side. The dog would climb into the bed beside him, nuzzling him gently until Noah's breathing slowed. It was Hero's silent comfort that helped Noah sleep through the night, knowing that he wasn't abandoned again. Jack had always known that love was the key to healing, but he never realized just how important Hero's role was in this process. Noah's connection to the puppy was undeniable. When words failed, Hero was always there, offering his warmth, his comfort, and most importantly, his unwavering loyalty. Hero was Noah's constant, his reminder that no matter what had happened in the past, he was safe now. One evening, as the family gathered around the dinner table, Jack noticed something he hadn't seen before, a genuine smile on Noah's face. The boy was laughing as Lily shared a silly story from school, and for the first time in a long while, Jack felt as though their family was whole. Hero, lying contentedly at their feet, wagged his tail, a silent participant in this moment of joy. It was in these small, quiet moments that Jack realized the depth of the healing taking place in their home. The love that had begun as a fragile thread was now a strong, unbreakable bond, one that could withstand whatever challenges lay ahead. And at the heart of it all was Hero, the dog who had not only saved Noah's life but had helped rebuild it, one step at a time. Part 4. A Family Reborn. As the months passed, the transformation within Jack's household was nothing short of miraculous. The family that had once been fractured, held together by the fragile threads of survival, was now thriving, bound by love, patience, and the quiet, unwavering presence of Hero. The puppy, once a small, scruffy figure that had wandered into Jack's life by chance, had now become the heart of the home. His loyalty to Noah and Lily had been instrumental in their healing, and his connection to Jack had grown into something even more profound, a bond that transcended the simple relationship between a man and his pet. Noah, once a boy who carried the weight of the world on his shoulders, was becoming a child again. He laughed more often now, even during the hardest moments, and the weight that had hung over him since his early days of neglect and abandonment was beginning to lift. There were still moments of fear, still moments when the memories of his past crept into his mind, but with each passing day, he grew stronger, more confident. Hero was always by his side, and in many ways, the dog was Noah's silent companion on his journey toward a new life. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Jack noticed how Noah had changed. He was no longer the silent, withdrawn boy who used to hide behind walls of fear. Now, he spoke freely about his day, his hopes, and even his fears. And each time he spoke, Hero would nudge his leg, as if encouraging him to continue. Jack could see how Noah's confidence had grown, how he was finally beginning to trust the love that surrounded him. But it wasn't just Noah who was changing. Lily, too, had blossomed in this new environment. The once quiet girl who had learned to hide her emotions behind a mask was now a ray of sunshine in their home. She had begun to make friends at school, her laughter echoing through the house as she played with Noah and Hero in the backyard. Jack often watched the three of them together, Noah kicking a soccer ball to Hero, Lily laughing as the dog chased it down, and Hero bouncing between them, his tail wagging so hard it was almost as if he were smiling, too. For Jack, these moments were a reminder of everything he had gained. When he had first brought Noah and Lily into his home, he had expected the transition to be difficult, maybe even impossible. But the love he had shown them, along with Hero's constant presence, had worked miracles. He had no idea how deep the bond could go between a man, two children, and a dog. Now, he couldn't imagine life without them. They were his family. One particularly cold evening, Jack came home to find Noah sitting at the kitchen table, staring at something in his hands. Hero, who had followed Jack inside, immediately went over to Noah, sitting at his feet and nudging his hand. Noah looked down at the dog, his eyes filled with quiet sadness. Jack could feel the weight of the moment in the air and gently walked over to Noah. "What's on your mind, kid?" Jack asked softly, pulling out a chair and sitting down beside him. Noah hesitated, then held out the small, crumpled envelope in his hands. "It's from her," he whispered. Jack's heart sank as he took the envelope, knowing exactly who it was from, Noah's mother. She had tried to contact Noah a few months ago, but Jack had made it clear that the boy didn't need the false hope of an unreliable mother. The letter had been one of the last ties to Noah's painful past. "Noah, you don't have to do this," Jack said, his voice gentle yet firm. "You've come so far, and we're here now. You have us." Noah nodded, his fingers trembling slightly as he folded the letter back up. "I don't want to forget her, but I don't want to hurt anymore either." Jack reached over and placed a hand on Noah's shoulder. "You don't have to forget her. But you don't have to carry that hurt with you anymore, either. You have a family here, and we'll be your family, no matter what." Noah looked up at Jack, his eyes brimming with unspoken emotion. "I know," he whispered. I just don't know how to let go. Jack smiled softly, pulling Noah into a hug. You don't have to let go all at once. It's okay to take it one step at a time. We're not going anywhere. As the days passed, Noah began to let go of the painful memories, little by little. It wasn't a perfect process, but it was progress. And with each step forward, Hero was there, by his side. The dog had become not just a pet, but a symbol of the love and stability that Noah had longed for. Hero's loyalty was a constant reminder that Noah was safe now, that the past no longer had to define him. It was during this time that Jack realized the full extent of the gift Hero had given them. The dog had been the catalyst for this transformation, the silent force that had united them all. Without Hero's quiet comfort, without his unwavering presence, Jack wasn't sure how Noah and Lily would have managed to heal. Hero had bridged the gap between past pain and future hope, offering them all a path forward. One evening, as the family gathered together for dinner, Jack looked around the table. Lily and Noah were laughing together, and Hero sat at their feet, wagging his tail. The house was full of love, and Jack felt a warmth in his chest. He had given them a home, a family, but they had given him something in return, a purpose, a deeper meaning to life. We're a family, Jack whispered to himself, a smile spreading across his face as he watched Noah share a joke with Lily. Yes, he added aloud, looking down at Hero, who seemed to sense the moment. We are. The laughter of the children, the wagging of Hero's tail, and the warmth of their home were all Jack needed to know that they had found something beautiful, something lasting. They were no longer the family of broken pieces, they were whole. And with Hero at their side, they would face whatever the future held together.